Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match Raw on AI Pro, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their immediate reactions to Manchester City 2, Liverpool 2 in the Premier League from the Etihad Stadium are Dave Hendrick and Jim Boardman. Dave, I'm not sure how I feel, man. I'm honestly not sure how I feel. Help me to parse out my emotions here. Part of me is a little bit gutted, I'll be honest, and part of me is thinking on the balance of the game. Yeah, we should probably just take that and skip away merrily. What way are you fixed after that very, very intense 94 minutes?
Well, I'm happier now than I was at half time as I was kicking things around my office. I'm sort of 40% relieved that we didn't lose because we deserved to lose for that performance. And I'm 60% pissed off at that performance. I thought Klopp got his team selection wrong. I thought we were very passive first half. I thought it was quite a cowardly performance from us first half. There was no real fight in that team at all. I thought Klopp waited too long to make certain substitutions. And I think we're very, very fortunate that City weren't a bit more clinical, that they didn't time their runs in behind our line a little bit better. But they had the freedom of the park to play down their left, our right, because a certain someone just couldn't be arsed to do his defensive work. And Trent was constantly left overloaded. Fab was having to come across. I'm looking at social media. People are saying Fab was terrible. I don't think he had a good game, but I think you can put a lot of his struggles down to the fact that he and Thiago were being asked to do three men's work between them while someone else was off prancing about pretending they were a centre forward. The good thing is it's basically as we were. It's 1 point and now 7 games to go. And I've seen a lot of people just concede the title after that, but I look at their running and I see Wolves away and I see West Ham away, and I think that's more difficult than what we have. We have United at home. In a normal year, you'd say that's a tough game, but United are garbage. We have Everton at home. They're garbage. Spurs at home is our hardest game, but it's at home. Their 2 toughest games are away from home. And we've seen them drop points to Crystal Palace and Southampton, teams they really should have beaten comfortably, teams who aren't as good as West Ham and Wolves. And I don't know why people are just immediately giving in. Look, if they win their last 7, then fair play to them. Give them a round of applause. If they run off 7 wins in a row between now and the end of the season, fair play. But it's not over.
No,
it's not over. I think a lot
a
of people are leaning into that because they're so annoyed with how we played today.
Possibly that, but also because City are depressingly excellent as well. And they're thinking, okay, they're not going to slip up and we have to be perfect. And I thought what was most revealing about this whole situation was I watched Kevin De Bruyne's interview immediately afterwards, and he was regretful about the amount of chances they had. You can tell he thinks they should have won the game, and he's right. However, he did also have a sort of a rueful appraisal of how we need to play like this all the time. And I think there may be a possibility, maybe that's a thing that Reds, who are sort of oddly despondent, and why you would lack faith in this bunch of lads under Jurgen Klopp is beyond me. But until it's over, you don't lack faith in these kids. They've earned it. They've earned every bit of your faith. So
they have. And if we think about their last 8 games before today, so this was the first game of the last 8 games of the season, and they've drawn it. In the 8 games before that, they drew away to Southampton, who aren't good. It got walloped by Chelsea yesterday. They drew away to Crystal Palace, who lost away to Leicester today and are a mid-table team, and they lost at home to a Spurs team who either side of that game were garbage. Now, I know Spurs are fourth at the minute, but Spurs lost to Chelsea, lost to Southampton, lost to Wolves, then beat City, and then lost to Burnley. Like, this City team are not infallible. They're a long way from perfect.
If they were infallible, we wouldn't have been sitting there today as excited as we were about what this game could mean and what it could lead to, because back at Christmas or whenever it was, it would have already been over, you know. So it's only 7 games. There's less time for them to make a mistake. But the fact they made a mistake is what gave us the chance today to put it into our hands completely. We didn't take that chance in the end, but we're no worse off than we were this morning.
Well, let's pivot straight that way with you, Jim, on this topic, because say the Reds did eke out a last-minute winner there, Luis Diaz or Mo or someone gets the ball over the line, and we come away dancing. You still can't relax for a frickin' second. No. And, you know, the idea, I mean, for you, Jim, I know you've been watching the game as long as I have. A win today would have been great, but you're not going off thinking, oh, that's the league in the bag now, mates. No. You know, so a little bit of balance. It is a bit deflating that it's as you were, because you do look at the two run-ins and you think, well, they are just fairly awesome, and you know, for all the arguments about they have big games to play, we do too, and it's going to be a tough one. We just have to keep in it and see what happens, and have that bit of faith. But like I said, the league was no way in the bag, despite what all the fucking, you know, edgelord pundits would have told you, even if we had won today, Jim.
No, it definitely wasn't. And I mean, this is exactly the kind of season that Sky Sports wants. I know it's not quite going the way that our friends in the commentary box want, but it's what they want, because it's not over. There's another weekend where they can hype it up, and it could go all the way down to that last game of the season. And we weren't involved that season when Aguero scored that goal that Sky played over and over and over again, when Tyler was so excited because Aguero had scored. And to be fair, I'll give him that. That was fair enough, being that excited, because that was, in that moment, in that occasion, that was good time to be excited about that goal. But it could go down to that this season. That last game, that last weekend of the season could be what decides it, because there's room for people to slip up. And that includes us. You know, we've not got to take it for granted. But, I mean, from our point of view now, we've got a couple of other games to deal with before we get back into the league, when we play against Taylor's other hometown team. And, you know, there's so much to play for. I mean, we just can't relax. Imagine going into a derby against potentially relegatable Everton and thinking you've won it before you go there. You can't do that. So it's still a good season. It's still an exciting season. There's still so much to play for. And I've still got a feeling we're going to be buying pints for someone else's club's fans, you know. Not sure who. Yeah. It wasn't Sean Dyche we bought pints for, but there'll be someone.
I love that idea, I have to say. It'll be the happiest money I'll ever spend. And, you know, let's get into the nitty gritty of today's affair. And you and I, Jim, will start by looking at the Liverpool 11. I know Dave will want to refer back to it, and we'll absolutely give you an opportunity to do that, Dave, when you and I speak about City. But Jim, just to get the ball rolling on the 11 that Jurgen went with, literally very few surprises. I think everyone would have foreseen that the defence. Certainly that was the midfield that on 3 different podcasts I asserted that I thought was the most likely, because it's Jurgen's go-to, I think, in his head. And then he went with Salah, Mane and Jota up top, which might have surprised a few people. A lot of people would have thought Luis Diaz might have got the shout. But when you have this really strong-looking bench as well, it's exciting. And you know, the point is that the changes are there to be made should you need to do them, because your performance is a bit subpar. Now, that is what turned out to be the case, and the game was kind of shouting out for a change or two for sure. Certainly at certain stages in that first half, it was really getting away from us, wasn't it, Jim? And you wouldn't, with the best will in the world, you wouldn't necessarily have thought that would necessarily be the case. You could always say, look, if you are critical of one or two lads in that lineup, maybe you think Mo's not doing it at the moment, you think Sadio's not doing it, you think Henderson's not great where he is. But it's at the end of the day, Jim, that's a lot of footballers out there who've won a lot of things for Liverpool and can do a good job and should be able to do a good job. So I wasn't too despondent, because to me that was almost entirely predictable Liverpool 11. I thought perhaps Diaz for Jota, but other than that, I didn't see Jurgen going any other way, for good or for bad. I thought that's what was going to happen. What about yourself? What was your take when you saw it? Was there anything screaming at you that you would have hoped he'd have done differently?
No, pretty much exactly the same thinking as you. I mean, what team would I have picked? I'm not sure, but what team did I expect him to pick? I mean, all the way up to the front three is pretty much what I expected. That would have been the back four. You knew he was going to put Henderson in for this one. He's skipper. He wants him in for this. Whatever we think of him, he can be good sometimes, and that's the thing. If Henderson played his best game today, we wouldn't be complaining about him now. But he didn't. But he wasn't the only one who didn't. I think then when it comes to the front three, I did expect Diaz to play. The only thing I thought was that by playing Jota instead, then Mane gets to play where he normally plays, where he's accustomed to playing, if you like, rather than playing centrally. But to me, Diaz would have been the better choice, in the sense that he's good at what he does when he's not just scoring goals or trying to score them. I think he's good at winning the ball, as we saw today. He's good at keeping the ball. He's good at challenging and pressing and all the rest of it. Which, and I'm not taking anything away from the other front three, but I just think, in many ways, he would have almost been my first pick for the front three today, and then decide who else to go with. Of course, no sooner do you see that, and then obviously Jota pops up with one. And that's the thing. All five of those main front three choices are good choices. But yeah, I think we just knew he was going to play Henderson. I don't think, if I was putting money on it, I would have put all the money on Henderson being able to play, because that's what I expected Klopp to do. But, in hindsight, I wonder whether Klopp's starting to see now that, maybe Hendo isn't the first choice. Maybe a better option would have been to have Hendo to come on for the last half an hour, because he's not, however good he has been, however good he can be, however kind or unkind you want to be about him, he's definitely not as good now as he was. He's getting older. He's not able to play as much at the same intensity, maybe. And the mistakes he made today, in some ways, could have been much more costly than they were. And the other trouble is, though, again, in hindsight, looking at it now, there's a lot of plays that you would say weren't worthy of the play, certainly in that first half. But I think before the match, you would not have expected yourself to be saying that at all. And that's kind of what skewed it for me. Totally different game second half, but first half, a lot of those players didn't deserve the pay packets for this game. And I know that's not all that motivates them, but I'm pretty sure at half-time all Klopp needed to say to them is, what the hell are you doing? Go, just be yourselves now, please. And thankfully, they were a lot more themselves in the second half. It was just front to back, the blunders were too many, and it felt like we got nervous, and that's a worry, because we shouldn't be getting nervous now. We've been in the big time and in the big games for a while. It reminded me of that horrible game when Rodgers was managing. We played Chelsea at home. The whole stadium was nervous. The players were nervous, and Gerrard slipped, and Chelsea wrote a song about it. And the nerves then were terrible, and it just felt like it was an inexperience that was doing that to us. And it felt a bit like that today. The fact that we changed it at half time, changed the mood, if you like, changed the approach from us, I think shows that at least we have had that experience, but we can't let ourselves be nervous like that again in a game.
No, not for the rest of the season, that's for sure. And Dave, if you want, like I say, Dave, if you want to refer back to Liverpool 11, please do. But let's you and I just take a quick look at City and the way they went. Obviously, it was more pundits and lads writing think pieces who are actually overthinking it rather than Pep. It's not really that shocking of a lineup with Walker, Stones and Laporte and Cancelo. That's a proper unit right there. Rodri and Bernardo Silva doing bits in midfield with De Bruyne ahead of them, and then Sterling, Foden and Jesus were the three that he went with. And that's, I guess, where there might have been an eyebrow or two raised. Certain people were thinking, would Grealish get the shout? Other people would have put the house on Mahrez getting the shout, and the fact that two of them were on the bench was probably surprising. And for the first time, I look at a Manchester City bench and I compare it with the Liverpool bench, and I think, fucking hell, for all their money, we're actually stronger across the full depth of the squad. I think it's tight, but I think we're actually stronger across the depth of the squad, and so that gave me a little bit of a frisson of excitement before the game kicked off at all. Talk to me a little bit about City, whether they were exactly as you and Carl predicted they would be, and if you want, like I say, to make a little reference back to the LFC lineup, please feel free to do that.
No, I can't be arsed talking about the Liverpool team. The City team, I thought Mahrez would start. He's the one I did think would start. I thought he'd start instead of Gabriel Jesus, because he's been pretty good since Christmas. He's been in a good vein of form, and I think I heard the commentator say Jesus hadn't scored since New Year's Day or something like that. So it was a little bit of a surprise. But once you saw the two teams line up and realised what their game plan was, it became very obvious why he started Jesus. He's quicker, he's more of a direct runner, and considering all of their build-up play was going to come down their left, our right, they were looking for that ball across the box, with Jesus being a better finisher coming in on a stronger right foot, as opposed to Mahrez, who's incredibly left foot dominant, and his right leg is basically just there for standing on. So any ball whipped across, or any crosses like we saw for their second goal, are a much easier finish for Jesus than they are for Mahrez. I thought Pep got his team absolutely spot on. He is the only manager in the world, though, that could spend 100 million on a fella and just sit him on the bench for the most important game of the season. Like, no one else would get away with that. The fact that Grealish has been a failure this season and doesn't get in their best 11. And when we talk about their best 11, you'd look at their team that played today and you'd say, if they're making a change in midfield, it's Gundogan to come in. If they're making one in the front three, it's Mahrez to come in. In neither scenario would Jack Grealish be the first one up off the bench. Any other manager gets absolutely slated for that, for the fact that Grealish is not one of the four best in either line, and yet you spent 100 million on him. It must be a great luxury to have. Like, imagine 100 million in the hands of Jurgen Klopp. That gets us three brilliant players. They got one player who's not good enough to start for them, and when he does start, they don't look the same level of team. Was a bit surprised he didn't bring on Gundogan at some point today. I thought he could have made a difference, his ability to float between the lines off the ball, especially given the amount of space that was being left to the right side of our midfield. I thought Gundogan could have taken advantage, but I thought Pep nailed it today. I thought he got it absolutely spot on. And if it wasn't for a couple of great saves, some really good defending by Virgil, and an offside flag, they would have got the result that they deserved.
Yeah. I hate to nod in agreement with all of that, but I am. We should just point out, really, that while Anthony Taylor and Paul Tierney were the talk of the pre-match, we'd have to say that there weren't any great, terrifyingly awful shouts, considering the carnage that could have been wreaked. So I don't think...
I thought Taylor had a good game.
Yeah, I don't think he warrants any great criticism at all. He was pretty solid. We'll talk about maybe one or two things as we go and see what we make of it. Dave, let's see you and I build up to... let's just talk about the opening part of the game where we do go a goal down, because on 4 minutes there is a move by them that opens us up, and Sterling should score. Alisson makes a fantastic save coming off his line to get out and basically block the shot. It's an outrageous save, and this needs saying. There was a lot of chat about was he or wasn't he, or was there offside or was there not offside. There were limited replays because obviously within a minute we are 1-0 down, and it's De Bruyne, because we never really recovered. You talked earlier on about an absence. I think you said, I think it was fight, the word you used in this team, and it's interesting you used that, because I need to bring it up later on in relation to some Gary Neville, Martin Tyler bollocks. But It's interesting because that is how it felt. It felt as if we were very, what they used to call in the 80s, after you, Claude, and, sort of scuffed clearances into dangerous areas and half-arsed attempts and just not enough steel about us, because after that shock where we need our goalkeeper to be brilliant, I think there's about 30 odd seconds and it is 1-0 to them. It is De Bruyne. He runs at us as we fail to clear our lines. That's effectively what we're doing, is we can't clear the fucking ball. De Bruyne runs at a combination of Fabinho and Henderson. He's nearer to Fabinho, so Fab got all the blame for being beaten, whereas the other lad was just sort of jogging alongside him. But yeah, nonetheless, goes past Fab and he drives a left foot shot. That has the Ali, I think, has covered, but Joel's rushing out to try and do some defending, and the ball comes off his leg and goes in, deflects away from Ali and goes in off the post and across, almost went across the goal line, but just about goes in. It's great play by De Bruyne. It's opportunism. It's a lad who's probably, realistically speaking, in any World 11, he's just an outrageous talent. He looked it again today. There's a couple of things.
He's a stupidly good footballer, isn't he? Like,
Stupid.
He really is.
Yeah. There's a couple of things, and maybe you might just humour me here as well. So I'm not sure if we'll have time to bring it up. Talk to me about those opening minutes and the concession of the goal. Give me your take on it, but also, there's endless chit chat about Liverpool's high line, and it's usually redundant because teams aren't good enough to get either the combination of the passing or the runs correct to exploit it, right? And so I end up being indignant and talking about how we do this fucking brilliantly on most shows, because we do. But when you have players like Kevin De Bruyne who can wait and release a pass properly, when you have players of the standard of Riyad Mahrez who can wait and run properly, or Raheem Sterling who can wait and run properly and make a proper run at the right time, then suddenly perhaps there is something to be said about using it as a tactic against truly world-class footballers. So it's a very interesting thing. Feel free to ignore that if you want, but it mightn't come up again. And talk to me around the concession of the goal.
So just on that point, right? You look at that City team, and Cancelo, Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, and Phil Foden are all, I would say, world-class level playmakers. Lads who can just find a bit of space, have the touch and the awareness and the poise and the passing ability to unlock any defence.
Rodri has a pass in him too.
Rodri as well. Rodri needs the game more in front of him, though. Like, he's not going to take the ball in and turn. But, like, Bernardo today continually just... We'll get into it more when we talk about the second half, but, like, Henderson was needlessly pressing Laporte from early on, and Rodri just kept standing behind him. And Laporte was just knocking the ball past Henderson. Bernardo was picking it up in acres of space, turning with loads of room to move into, and runners going everywhere. De Bruyne, the two fullbacks, and the front three. And that's where our high line becomes a little bit of a risk, because he has the ability to go first time to one of the runners, but those runners are making those runs regardless, and if we drop with them, well, then he's got a simple short ball to De Bruyne, to Bernardo Silva, or to Cancelo overlapping, and all of a sudden they're now moving into space, but they're 15, 20 yards further up, and now our defence has dropped and is in retreat, and they're threatening again. So it does become a bit of a game of cat and mouse. Like, I thought we held the line really well today, as we always do, but it was riskier today because of their ability to mix and match. Like, they can throw you off with a short pass or a long pass. Any one of them can disguise a pass between the lines. We have players that can do it. We have Trent, we have Thiago, we have Mo. They're all world-class level playmakers as well. It's just very unusual for us to come up against a team that has four of them in their in their team. Normally it's 1 or 2, maybe 3 like us, but it's rare that someone has 4. The goal is a shambles. So, as you said, we got that scare when Sterling is sent through. Again, a pass under no pressure, plays him through. Ali does phenomenally well. Like, it is incredible goalkeeping. And it wouldn't be the first time or the last time. It's not the first time or the last time he'll do that for us this season. He's been amazing in 1v1s. But we never settled after that. You would have thought somebody would have started barking at that point and got things settled. But instead, they win the free kick really quickly afterwards. We're sloppy with the ball. They pick it up and they win that free kick. Fabinho's close to the ball. De Bruyne just drifts to the left. And Henderson's far too busy crying at the referee and doesn't even bother going with him. So when De Bruyne picks the ball up, Henderson just jogs across. Fab is trying to get there, doesn't get close. And like you said, he's the one getting a lot of the blame, but he's getting the blame because people aren't actually looking at. If you look at a freeze frame of when the free kick was awarded and then like 5-second intervals until the goal, just watch what Henderson does. It's very much that thing of, if I don't do my defensive work and someone else does it, and they don't do it well, it's their fault and not mine. But that's a shambles from him. Crying at the referee rather than getting over to cover the area he's meant to be in. It's such a lack of just basic intelligence. It's brilliant from De Bruyne. It absolutely is. And unfortunately for Joel, he tries to get a block on it, does get a bit to it, and it goes in. I think it's the second first half goal we've conceded in the last 21 games.
Yeah. And
both of them have gone in off Joel. The Rashika one and that one. So, poor old Joel. But yeah, it's so poor from Henderson. And Fabinho's getting the blame for, I don't know what, like not being able to cover 2 places in once.
Yeah. Do you know what, just for the record, I thought Joe was excellent today. Really, really good. And I would say as well that, again, for the record, people will be aware that, I did my best at least to try and present a somewhat neutral view on as many things as I can, just in a host capacity. But I think somewhere there's a camel out there with the legend Hendo painted across it, and someone just put a straw on his back, and I think he may have broken it, because if you're not getting that feeling from that outing today, Martin Tyler, noted football savant, was talking about how Henderson was leading the press. Then Gary Neville noticed it as well, with great glee and delight and jolly hockey sticks. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is he doing leading the press? What the fuck is he doing leading the press? In a game where we are getting played through, you cannot be charging off to close down, and it's not like, if those idiots are saying it, it's obviously a massive feature of the game that he's one of the first people. And also, here's another thing, and let's give that its due as well. Is there a possibility that that's exactly what he's been told to do? And if there is, then we have to apportion blame elsewhere. And
Klopp called him over in the second half and was very clearly telling him to hold his position. And within 30 seconds, Henderson was 25 yards out of position, running very slowly at Emerick Laporte, who just played it round him, and City were away again.
And he was the next player to go off, wasn't he?
That's the thing, and then he was hauled off. And the thing is, like, I don't want to hear about leading the press, because leading the press is not running aimlessly at people that you don't get anywhere close to and having the ball passed past you. Leading the press is not pressing their right side centre back or their right-sided midfielder when you're our right-sided midfielder. That's just being out of position. That's chasing the ball. That's not pressing. There's no intelligence in that. All you're doing is you're leaving other players exposed. And we saw it today. I mean, you mentioned Joel. I thought Joel had a good game. I thought Virgil had a very good game. I thought defensively Trent did outstandingly well, other than their second goal. which we'll get to. But Trent was left 2 and 3v1 at different times. Salah was doing more to help Trent than Henderson. And it was just time and again in that first half, Henderson would trail De Bruyne across and then completely ignore him as De Bruyne just drifted off into space and Henderson got fixated on the ball and then pressed the ball, despite the fact, like, you're not getting the ball there. Why are you pressing these players when you're not getting the ball? What part of this do you struggle with? That you're not quick enough or good enough at pressing to get the ball. And all people need to do is look at his pressing numbers over the last few years. Listen to under pressure. He's a middle of the road presser. He just runs a lot. And today he was running a lot very slowly. And by probably 60, he was basically walking around the place. He was walking around the place. And you could see him try to skip to get his legs going again. And there was just nothing there. And somehow he stayed in the field.
I have a fear that, you know, obviously this is, I'm very aware we're feeding into a big ongoing chat, but I just have the fear that there's, at this point, it's getting cultish if you can't just maybe see that there could be some issues. And I wanted to bring
Oh no, it's a full blown cult, Trev, and that full blown Trump was born.
But there's a
season. He was born in the title winning season.
There's a navigated cult as well, David, and we have to acknowledge that. And there are people who are daftly just saying blah blah blah. So it's just, yeah, it's
horses real... for courses, and I mean, it's not a good analogy because some horses get put down when they get to a certain stage or sign up to stud or whatever. But it's, if this was a League Cup game that we were playing against Man City in October, he'd probably play that. You know, the captain of the kids kind of thing. You know, you bring him in. Like, you'd expect to see Milner play, maybe, you know, in a League Cup game. But when you get to a game like this, I mean, this is quite clearly by far the best team we played this season. You know, that was the most difficult opponent I think we've had this season.
By a mile.
So, you know, is he the right player? You know, when you're rotating and you're bringing him in, yeah, okay, play him against Norwich. You know what I mean? That's fine. But this is, I think, this
for
is
the last 4 years,
now.
There's been a time and a place for James Milner. The time is generally the last 5 to 10 minutes of the game, or the place is generally a League Cup game, or, you know, one of the more very straightforward league games. We're at that point with Jordan Henderson.
I think that's Jordan's place and time.
There is a time and a place for Jordan Henderson. Big games has never been a time and a place for him. There's always something goes wrong with him. Like, even you think back to 13-14, he does really well against City and then loses his head in the last minute and gets himself sent off.
Yeah, but you see, there's also, like, I mean, and it's not necessarily, these aren't even necessarily cult members, but they're the lads who'll tell you, big games, Dave, big games. We won the league. He's lifted the trophy. We won the Champions League. He's lifted the trophy. We've won the cup this season.
There is a weird thing where people seem to think wearing an armband makes you a better player. That because he lifted the trophy, he was more important to it than Virgil and Salah and Mane and Trent, the actual great players who won it.
I hate the captaincy idea. I mean, I always remember laughing at England because someone gave David Beckham the armband. I think it was Peter Taylor or someone who was like an interim manager.
And he had to be captain from that. He had to be in the team from then on.
Every manager who had him had to play him because he had to be captain. And it's just, you know, I just think we put too much on what the captaincy is. I mean, I just think, you know what? Do it by age order if you have to. Do it by alphabetical order. Do it by how long they've been at the club order.
That's what Klopp does, though. Klopp does it by who's at the club the longest. That's what he's always done. He did the same thing at Dortmund. And if you think of it, who's he given the captaincy to at Liverpool over the years in one-off games? The likes of John Flanagan, Lucas Leiva, Jose Enrique was captain for a game because they'd been at the club the longest.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You're just holding the armband for that game. You're not a shoo-in for the next match, and that's what we've got to separate. You know, Henderson is not. You know, we can celebrate what he's done, but that doesn't take away from what he's doing now. You know, and that's the thing.
And the problem is, like, now, he's not offering anything as a footballer right now. He's absolutely appalling defensively. On the ball, he can still have his moments. And, you know, we've seen him play in that number 6 position certain games this season and be very, very good. We saw him away to Everton have a really good game. But those games you can count on one hand. The bad games, you're running out of digits between your fingers and toes. But surely the bare minimum he has to bring, if people are talking about him as, you know, setting the tone, setting the example, being a leader out there, Surely to God, when there's a free kick in the 5th minute and we've just had a big scare, he's the one you want trying to calm things down, not bitching at the referee.
And when I
you
talked
want him
about the
having
nerves,
words with somebody.
when I talked about the nerves, I mean the nervousness. That is what your skipper should be doing. He should be calming those nerves. He should be, the calming influence. They get you excited when you look complacent. Get you calming down when you're losing your head. And I just felt like we were really jittery today, and maybe the skipper was jittery, and that was going through the rest of the team. It's worrying, as I've said. We shouldn't be looking nervous in any game.
And look, he wasn't the only one that was bad first half. He was the worst of a bad bunch. But there's a difference between great players having a bad game and someone who's just been poor most of the season having a game that replicates what they've done most of the season. So, like, if people think we're being unfair on him, he has been poor most of the season. It's been whitewashed because not one journalist had the guts to go and write about it. They released hatchet pieces about Naby Keita when he had his first poor game of the season against Atletico Madrid. But nobody's written a word about Henderson's season. Not one of them.
Maybe the truth is that Henderson and Keita aren't actually good enough for us for that position, and maybe we need to look for someone else. It's not necessarily that you pick him.
I think everybody agrees with that, Jim. I think everybody would agree if Liverpool are going to go and buy one starter in the summer, it's that midfield position.
If you could have picked
Naby's the backup to Thiago, Henderson's the backup to Fabinho. You get a new starter in there, and then you've still got Elliott, Jones, Carvalho if he comes in the summer, who can fill in, there and in attack. But that's the weak link of our team, and
it's where we're short. If we're going to come up short, it's there. And Jim, let's ease the captain's armband onto your bulging bicep there and move forward with this game, because listen, I'm literally zero apologies for having that conversation, which is utterly central to any Liverpool fans thinking at the moment if they're looking at the game in a honest way. We go 1-1 on 12 minutes, Jim, and you and I are going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the run up until the time where City go 2-1 ahead. We'll bring Dave back in. Let's look at that real quick. Because when we go 1-1, and it's through Diogo Jota, we've been playing some good football and starting to find a little bit of rhythm. It ends with Robbo finding Trent, and Trent's hat volley cut back is swept home under the keeper, who you could say should possibly do better, by Diogo, who's arriving in that right place to hit his 21st goal of the fucking season. Let's give the lad credit where it's due. 21 goals. That is outrageous. And for all the kind of facile comments about he's not great or he does this, he does that, who gives a shit if your striker scores goals? And he does that. And that's a massive goal that Diogo Jota has gotten for us again. I want to just let you chat about that quickly, and then me and you are going to, like I say, push on through the second half, or the first half, to where we concede again.
Well, I think that it took us a second, I think, to get our breath back after we'd conceded. And I think at that point we were still trying to find our feet. There was nervousness, certainly after the goal. I mean, I think Jesus was brought down at one point, but the ref had already blown. There was, and I just remember thinking how nervous we looked. But then we just started to kind of remember what we do, and what we do best is attack. And we did it. And that goal from Jota, I'm not taking anything away from him. He's 21 goals, and he's done it almost unnoticed, if you like, because there are times in games when he's anonymous, times in games when, he's not doing everything right, but he does enough, and he's a problem. I think I can remember years ago Liverpool had Paul Walsh playing when Kenny Dalglish was manager. By this point, Kenny had sort of hung his boots up, or was about to. Walsh was wearing his number 7 shirt. And there was like all this stuff in the press about Walsh not scoring game after game. But when he actually went to the game, it was him who was making the space for others to score. It was him who was setting the goals up. This was the days before assists were probably counted anyway, before anyone kept a record of them. And this is sometimes what gets forgotten, is the contributions players have in other ways. And I think Jota's a great member of our front five. And it's, as I said early on, how you pick the 3 out of those 5 is a nice problem to have, and it depends who you're playing and the form and all the rest of it. But they're all good choices. especially on the day. And this is the thing, he just keeps finding that net, doesn't he? And that at that point we'd silence them. That goal silenced the home fans. I mean, before the goal they were cheering throw-ins as if they'd just won the league. Then they scored, and the volume did go up for a bit. We scored, and that place just went dead.
Yeah. They
were stunned into silence, and the disappointment is that we didn't capitalise on that. You know, that the old Liverpool teams of old in Europe and stuff like that. Once you've silenced the home fans, you can go for the throat then, and sadly we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't, and you're right. And they were actually booing possession as well, and whistling possession in a way that was, borderline intimidating. Obviously, it fell away because empty had, but we'll push on from there, because on 15 minutes, 3 minutes after the goal, Walker helped the ball on to Sterling. He lays it off to Jesus, whose effort was pretty much straight at Ali. Thankfully, there was a good ball forward by Robbo, which nearly got Mo in straight after that, but the keeper got there in front of him. There was then a dangerous Walker ball right into the box, cleared by Virgil van Dijk on 18 minutes. That led to a corner. Fab with a possession giveaway on 19 minutes resulted in a little bit of chaos and another corner. Emerson then, for no reason whatsoever, nearly puts it through his own net by sort of taking an air swipe. And to be fair to the kid, having enough self-possession to let the ball roll back towards his goal line and still make the pass. And Jota is sliding in with great intent, God bless him. And it's one of those moments. 24 minutes then, there's a free in which found Rodri at the back post. Now his header is back across, so from the left to the right. And it really is very dangerous looking, and anybody could have just applied a little bit of a touch to finish it. There's no evidence that there was anybody offside or anything like that. So that's another let off. 27 minutes, Robbo's in late on De Bruyne and picks up a yellow. Now, from the free kick that came from that yellow card, we turned things around, and Trent actually tried one from his own half, just inside his own half, but he didn't get his execution right. Now, again, and I have to sort of grudgingly admit that I don't know which of the two commentators it was, but if you were going to pick a Liverpool player to strike that ball from there, it is that guy, because he is ridiculous with his execution. It didn't come off on that occasion, and in 28 minutes, Cancelo was played in off a long ball. He found De Bruyne, who swiveled, this is on the left, and shot wide of the near post. Joel did really, really well on a 1v1 with Foden on the half-hour mark, and then we had a little bit of possession ourselves and a decent move, and it was building, and then we found the last ball was Hendo with options aplenty, and he just hits a terrible kind of dinked pass to no one on 32 minutes. So you're looking at rare opportunities, Jim, and then on 34, the ball goes into Cancelo. He hit the side rigging on the near post on 34 minutes. 35 minutes, De Bruyne rolled the ball into the 6-yard box. Joel clears it. It's a corner. And on 36 minutes, it's Gabby Jesus. We tried to clear the corner via Joel, but the ball was hit back in by Rodri. It's a lovely pass. Credit where it's due. Really beautifully executed pass. Jesus has timed his run perfectly off Trent. Ball hops from this really gorgeous Rodri pass. And as Ali approaches and rushes out, Jesus applies, like I say, a half volley finish to the back of the net. Now, there are, I think 9 times out of 10, our man probably saves that. And I've literally no criticism for it at all, because it's a beautiful finish. It's a really good pass, and our man does all he can, but he's just so bloody good. It's almost a surprise to see him getting beaten by that, if you know what I mean, Jim. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that chunk of the match where they did have the majority of the play, but we looked like if we could have been a bit more cynical and clinical, we could have possibly stolen this game.
Yeah, I think we were our own worst enemies again for spells between the two, between our equaliser and their second. It was the same kind of thing that when, they're going to attack, they're going to come at you, but you get the ball out. And I mean, I know we're not hoof merchants. I know we're not the kind of people who say just find row Z and stuff like that. But, sometimes that might be not too bad an idea just to, rather than trying to place a headed clearance to someone when there's, 2 Liverpool players and 3 City players in that general area, you've sort of gently headed it towards. There was too much of that going on, too much of just not getting the ball clear, just not, not even putting out for a throw rather than losing possession. And in terms of like losing possession in open play, a throw gives you a chance to reset yourselves a little bit. At least it just felt like, I don't know, we were rattled. But then that moment when Ederson nearly scored an own goal, that was just classic Brazilian goalkeeper stuff, because we've seen Ali do similar kinds of things. They just have these moments, don't they, where almost as if they're just trying to entertain us. I think, if that had been an English goalkeeper making that mistake, he'd have ended up sliding to stop it going in and scored big style, wouldn't he? So, it's entertainment. But I think that was the only moment where really we felt we were in with a chance of sort of extending our not extending, getting the lead, building on what we've done with that goal from Jota. The Trent one, I think that was worth a try. I think in the end, I think he slipped a bit as he took it. And of course, our favourite commentators on for those of us who have to endure Sky, Tyler compared it to Beckham's shot from the halfway line from sometime in 1870s, I think that was. I mean, as if that's the only time anyone's ever scored from the halfway line. He could always give Xabi a ring. Xabi Alonso might be able to help him on that. But it was. I mean, and that was the kind of thing, I think, in that spell there, maybe the two main chances we had was Trent's speculative halfway line effort and the City goalkeeper nearly scoring for us. And I think that just says a lot about how we were playing them. We were still sort of on the back foot. We were still, I don't know, almost like letting them come at us. And I think there's times we've done that this season against lesser teams, and it's been fine doing that because we've always got that bit of extra skill. And, we've said it before, if you do get past the defence, you've got Ali in the way, and Ali will stop you. And if you do manage to get a pass as well, we'll get one against you. And, we've had spells where we have kind of almost rested in games. We've just been in second gear. And I just felt today that we'd forgotten that, we've done so well in second and third gear in recent games that we've almost forgotten that we've got a fourth, fifth, sixth gear, whatever, and we just didn't even go looking for it. And it felt inevitable that they were going to score. It just felt inevitable. But as it was, as you say, it was a tremendous goal. It was, he sussed out how to beat our offside trap. He ran perfectly, and I was waiting for it to be ruled offside because it just looked too good to be true from their point of view that would go in. But no, it wasn't offside. He timed it perfectly. And as you say, maybe other times Ali would have done something about it. But I think it's wrong to kind of be critical for the actual goal of Liverpool, because that was a good Man City goal. But where you can be critical is what led to it. It was Liverpool just not clearing the ball from various occasions, from various attempts by City, just not getting any control on the game at all. I've never seen Liverpool so out of control, if that's the right word, right phrase, as they were in that first half today. And that it just felt inevitable that they were going to score. And in a way, you could almost say 2-1. That maybe that wasn't even a fair reflection of the way the game had gone at that point. That maybe 2-1 was being kind to Liverpool.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because just to finish out that first half, there was a dangerous ball in by Foden, which nearly picked out Sterling on 42. One of the captain's best minutes happened a minute later. He played in Jota, who could have done so much better and put us level on 43 minutes. But then, just to emphasise the point you just made, Jim, they get a great buzz, City do, out of a Laporte and a magic Alisson save where Laporte was clearly offside. And then, after Sadio Mane was fouled and the free was given and the game played on for reasons and Foden hit it home to the back of the net, then, based on that, which was not anything to do with a game that was legally being played. Both of our pals, Neville and Tyler, went on a rant about how we should be losing by more based on that, not on anything that actually had gone before, where you could absolutely guarantee, like, that's actually not a bad point you're making there, lads.
Yeah, the effort that was so late, and another referee would have booked him for that because it was so far after the whistle had gone.
Honestly, it's a yellow card, honestly, and they used that for their little look. But you know what? I'll credit where it's due. I think the general sentiment of what they were saying was probably true. So much as it pains me to give it to them, I will. And Dave, the second half, and let's take that first maybe 15 minutes or so of this second half, and I'm gonna.
Can I just very quickly talk about the first half, because I only got like 5 minutes.
Go on, dude. Yeah.
The first half, like the first goal, our goal, Thiago's pass makes that goal. Nothing's happening. He switches the play massively, and all of a sudden they're all at sea. That's what the first goal comes from. But what was interesting was we only played well in the game after we went behind in the first half. Like, they scored, and then we sort of woke up and played well for 8 minutes, and then scored, and then went back to sleep. It was the most bizarre thing that we just seemed to, like, almost be accepting of a draw, as if, like you said earlier, we felt like we were honoured to be there. But you guys mentioned Trev, you mentioned the Foden thing at the end. The commentator tried to claim that he didn't hear the whistle because the atmosphere was incredible. I thought the atmosphere was dog shit.
Mm.
For a big game like that, I thought the atmosphere was really, really poor. I don't think those fans know what it's like to create a real atmosphere. Now, maybe the stadium isn't particularly good acoustically, I don't know. But the atmosphere seemed really, really flat. And maybe that affected us as well, because you remember back when there was no fans, City just played the exact same way, because they're like a really cold, clinical type of team, almost surgical in their approach. Whereas with us, it almost felt like when they scored and the crowd did sort of get into it, we got into it as well, as if we were able to feed off that. It was the same thing in midweek in Benfica. When the crowd were really up against us in the first half, we seemed to play really well.
We do, yeah.
And then in the second half, or once we scored today, rather, we just went completely flat.
It's strange on so many levels.
The loudest thing in that stadium was the double height advertising hoardings, which was so distracting. And they were all advertising Abu Dhabi businesses of various flavours.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder how many of them are owned by Sheikh Man. So do you know what's funny, right? Just completely as an aside, they don't sell that stadium out most weeks. As you guys said, it's known as the Empty Hat for a reason. They have the second cheapest season ticket in the entire division. Like, their most expensive season ticket is cheaper than the cheapest season ticket at Anfield. And yet they still can't sell the place out. And they're giving away 5,000 tickets most weeks to like kids from schools and stuff.
Yeah.
And yet they want us to believe that they're the most commercially powerful club in the world, even though they've clearly got quite a very small fan base.
Well, they made money in COVID, Dave, so, you know.
Hundreds of millions, apparently.
The lads, TM have never fucked up so royally as printing those results. Like, seriously, if you wanted to say, hey, sports washing, then, it's fucking stunning.
Yeah, that's the trouble. The most expensive season ticket at City costs £100 million per season, doesn't it? That's the problem.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, there is that one. Yeah, that is quite a pricey. it's a pricey ticket. Dave, let's talk about the second half, which I fully agree with your reversal to the first half. It starts with us going level, and it's not just that it starts with us going level. It's a wonderful sort of reassertion of, actually, we can be in this if you don't mind. We'll talk about the goal, which is Sadio Mane's goal. Beautiful through ball by Mo, and Sadio sweeping it home, coming in from the left to the centre to sweep the ball home. It's Fucking great goal. We also have a great move in 48 minutes, which ends with a ball by Robbo in that probably should be a bit better because there's a real opportunity there. 50 minutes, ball in by Jota. Again, should be better executed because Sadio's inside him. 51 minutes, Mo plays a fantastic ball into Jota, and Jota's toe poke is saved by Ederson because he's a good goalkeeper. And then there's an outrageous ball into Jota by Trent on 56 minutes. And Thiago takes out Jesus as they break. He gets no yellow, but he picks up a yellow a couple of minutes later on 61 minutes. And on 60 minutes, Jesus beats Robbo, cuts back in to shoot, but Virgil's there to block it. Now, that's the opening sort of, like I say, opening salvo, 15 odd minutes or so of that second half. There's quite a few bits going on there, but we are very, very much in the ascendancy. We are far more dominant than we have been at any other spell in the game. Than we go on to be in any other spell in the game. It's our purple patch. In the middle of that purple patch, Gary Neville says, the City are cultured, but they're up against a street fighter in Liverpool. And I'm thinking, fuck you, Gary Neville.
Yes.
Fuck you, Gary Neville. City are cultured, but they're up against a street fighter in Liverpool. There is literally a fucking hair's breadth, a gnat's chuff, etc. Use your expression of choice between the standard of football that we play and Manchester City play, and he has us reduced to some sort of fucking plucky Burnley. What a fucking prick.
Yeah, no, 100%. I could not agree more, because he cannot, no matter what we do, he can't bring himself to avoid taking a dig. Like, even when he's trying to praise us, there's always a little underlying dig in there. And it is massively a Manchester versus Liverpool thing. And it's all of England versus Liverpool in a lot of ways. We've seen in the past with, say, a player like Wayne Rooney. If Rooney had been born anywhere else, if Rooney wasn't a Scouser, Rooney would have been held up on a far higher pedestal by English football fans, because he was this phenomenal talent that appeared at 16 and just had this incredible gift with the football. But yet all people wanted to do was splash him all over the front page for negative things, not give him any kind of protection the way you see given to, I don't know, Mason Greenwood, currently not able to play because he's been accused of rape. Phil Foden, who was caught pissed up swinging a punch at somebody at a boxing event. You don't see that on the front page. But Wayne Rooney's life was all over the front page. And I wonder why that is. Could it be where he's from? But like with Liverpool, it's that, this street fighter thing. And I'm looking at our team and I'm thinking, Trent, the most cultured right back in the world, Virgil, the most cultured centre back, Fabinho, incredibly cultured, Thiago, incredibly cultured, Salah, incredibly cultured. Like, these are cultured footballers. There's no street fighters in this Liverpool team. There's no Roy Keane in this team, or I don't know, Vieira or anything like that in this team. There's none of that. There's none of that. We're not some plucky little bunch of upstarts.
The last Foden with his Street Fighter haircut.
Yeah, the last Street Fighters we had, if you want to lean into this, were Luis Suarez and Mascherano.
Yeah,
and by the way, I'm sorry, but I'm saying that I'm hyper aware that that's a fucking terrible stereotyping job I'm doing there. But they, to be fair to the two lads, they'll also lean into it if you let
100%, 100% leaning into that. But like, we're not like all you ever hear about is John Stones, what a cultured centre back. And you look at the two boys we have playing today, Joel and Virgil, I would argue probably the two best ball playing centre backs in world football. Joel as the ball carrier, Virgil as the passer. And yet they don't get half the praise that John Stones gets, or Ben White, two lads that couldn't defend if their lives depended on it. But yet our two are knocking the ball around, carrying the ball, doing different things. And never gets mentioned. And Americ Laporte as well, because he's left-footed. What a cultured footballer. Look at that left foot. Joe can say, I had Jim, you Neanderthals had Neville and thing. I had Neville on one screen, but I was largely watching the game with Jim Beglin on commentary. And Jim Beglin seemed desperate for us to get a player sent off. Like, he seemed desperate for us to get a player sent off. On the Fabinho one where he got the yellow, oh, that's right, an orange card territory, that is. And then when Thiago got fouled, having already been booked and ended up clattering into De Bruyne because he was being fouled, he wanted him sent off as well. But like, there is just this weird media narrative that we're some like gang of thugs who are performing well above our station. Maybe for Neville it's difficult because he looks at the team we have and he looks at what his team put out yesterday and looks at how much money they've spent and how much chaos there is around that club, and he's just desperately upset about it. But like, be upset at City. Like, if it wasn't for City, you'd still at least be the number one team in your own city. You know, you've been relegated to number 2 in Manchester, let alone anywhere else. But the first 15 minutes anyway, away from Gary Neville and Jim Beglin and all their bullshit, we were really good in that first 15, and we probably should have been ahead because, like you said, the Mane goal is outstanding. And it was funny, I'd avoided social media for the first half, and I looked at the half time, and it was just predominantly get Henderson off, and I agreed. Get Salah off, and I was like, hang on a second now. Get Mane off. I'm like, right, I get that they're not playing well, but you do understand those two lads can break open any game. Like, they can break open any game in the world just with 1 minute of absolute genius, or like 10 seconds of genius, as it might be. And that's exactly what we see for the first goal. It's a brilliant pass and it's a brilliant finish. And then we should go 3-2 up because I have no idea how Jota misses. I don't understand whether he thought he had less time than he did, but like, he could have taken a touch, picked his spot, and wrapped it home.
This is from the Henderson through ball.
No, in the second half, the one was it Henderson's ball where he shot and Ederson saved it with his foot just after we scored. Well, a few minutes after we scored, he has that one where I think Salah plays it to him, and he shoots first time.
Oh, the toe poke, yeah.
Toe poke, yeah. Like, yeah, you have time. Take a touch.
Yeah.
Take a touch.
Yeah.
The first one in the first half where he waited and Laporte came across, and Laporte is lying on the floor, and Jota's still taking his time over things. And in the second half, then he gets an opportunity, and he doesn't take the time he has. It was a little bit frustrating, but that was sort of it for us. We had that 45 to 60 minute period, and even towards the end of that, you started to feel them starting to claw the game back. Like you mentioned, there's the Thiago one where he should have got a yellow card and didn't. And then the one where he absolutely cleans De Bruyne out of it. And the best part is, as the game's playing on, Anthony Taylor's pointing at him, like telling him, you're getting a yellow card. And the ball doesn't go out of play for about 3 minutes. And then he goes over and gives Thiago the yellow card. And Thiago looks completely like confused. Like, what have I been booked for? I haven't done anything. Why did Thiago have to make that challenge on Kevin De Bruyne? Because someone was out of position pressing someone they shouldn't have been pressed, and the midfield was left wide open.
Which member of our midfield didn't get a yellow card? Anyway, moving on.
No, here we go. Do you know what? Do you know what? It's genuinely an interesting observation you make, Jim. We are going to take it to the end here because the incidents start to get lesser as we go through the rest of the game, except for one thing, Jim, and we'll start with that. And then what I'm going to do is I'll see the game out then with you, and I'll go to Dave then for his wrap-up thoughts and finish the show with yourself, Jim. So And this is weird because you would think it's going to be high octane between now and the end, but not so much. Thiago does pick up that yellow, as Dave says, in 61 minutes. Trent is really, really good in a 1v1 with Foden on 62 because apparently he can defend. They go 3-2 up, they think, straight after that. It's a De Bruyne ball into Sterling. It looks as if they might have sprung the offside trap. It goes to VAR, and quite rightly is not awarded because he was offside. And you go again, and you sort of take a breath, and you think, we're really good at this shit, and maybe someone might want to acknowledge that in some position of microphone authority at some point. So in terms of what happens next, there's an outrageous ball into Sadio on 67 minutes. There's a brilliant bit of VVD defending against Sterling on 67. We take on Diaz for Jota. That does have an impact, Jim, I think. 70 minutes, we see Mo cutting in and shooting. There's a deflection. There's a definite corner. But they check for a penalty because VAR can see that there has been a connection from Mo's shot that stops it from going in. And so they're checking for a fucking penalty. And then they say, yeah, it's come off not his arm. So it's come off some other part of him. So goal kick.
Fucking ridiculous.
Fucking ridiculous is exactly the right assessment there. 71 minutes, Jesus has an opportunity where he's played in by De Bruyne. He hits the side rigging. They take on Mahrez for Sterling on 74. Really good bit of Liverpool play, ends with a corner after that, but nothing comes of it. 77 minutes, we take on Naby Keita for Jordan Henderson. And on 81 minutes, I can't remember who gets a yellow card for being late on Silva. On 82, Grealish is brought on for Jesus. 83, Bob is brought on for Sadio. Sadio's last act, credit where it's due, was to track a run on a free kick, and he does it brilliantly. And these are little things, and they're not noticed by they certainly aren't noticed by the lads who give the ratings in places like the Echo that get put around the country. That's massive. Fair fucking play, Sadio Mane, in my opinion. Cancelo cuts in and takes an attempt on 87 minutes, but it's well wide of Ali's left post. 88, Virgil takes out De Bruyne as he's bearing down on goal. It leaves a free kick, which is central, just outside the D. Mahrez hits the post from that. But Ali, I think, had it covered if we're looking back on it.
Yeah.
4 minutes are added. De Bruyne should pretty much get a yellow himself for a foul on Fabinho, but apparently Anthony Taylor doesn't think it's worthy of it. There's a free on the right hand side, and then on 93 minutes, Mahrez could have won the game. He is played in by De Bruyne again, and when he's cutting in, he's on his left foot, which, as I think Dave pointed out earlier on, there's a bit of a standing leg, and he lofts it over the top. Doesn't execute it properly, and we are let off the hook. I don't know if we're let off the hook. Overall, that period of the game where we could have possibly turned the screw, we don't. We certainly seeded more, I think, than we created. And it's the reason why, Jim, overall, I feel that when we walk away with this 2-2, it might be a fucking wonderful point on the basis of the season overall. We can't predict what's about to happen, but it might be a wonderful point in the context of the season overall because, if we're being really honest, and Dave started the show with this sentiment, he's dead right. We should have lost the game at the end. That if Mahrez keeps his head, he should win the game. And overall, in terms of the chances that were created, and the dominance, we've done well to come away from there with a 2-2, in my opinion, Jim. What's your opinion?
No, I agree, and I think if you flip it round a little bit, if that had been literally swap the two team names round and just literally talk about what we've just talked about and how it ended, if it had been Liverpool fluffing the lines at the last minute, if it had been Liverpool that hadn't capitalised on a poor City performance in the first half, and so on and so on and so on, we'd have been fuming. We'd have been fuming with Liverpool for letting themselves down and missing an opportunity. And instead, I think it's City who've done that. And it's interesting. I've not got the quote to hand, but the way De Bruyne is talking afterwards is that wish I'd kept the quote now, but he was just basically along the lines of that. He's admitted that you can't win every game, and he almost sounds like he's expecting to lose a game before the end of the season.
Yeah,
the Liverpool players are talking the other way around.
You're right, Jim. You're right, Jim. And I was saying that to Dave earlier on. That's the thing I got from it. I don't know. I guarantee it won't be picked up by the papers or by other people. But the gist of what that De Bruyne's speech was, you're so right, man. Was we need. It was like he was rallying the fucking troops. It's like, this is how we need to play for the rest of the games, lads. Do you get this? This is how we need to fucking play. Yes, because obviously they hadn't. Now I don't know about you, but that gives me a little bit of fucking hope, because I'm thinking, well, maybe they can't get it up for the littler events,
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Exactly that. I mean, they. At times this had all the sort of feeling of being a final. I mean, in that last 5 minutes, it felt to me as though maybe 10 minutes, it kind of turned into one of those extra time, last 5 or 10 minutes of extra time feelings where neither side wanted to really, really commit to scoring in case they let one in at the other end, thinking it's going to go to pens. And then obviously someone realises it's not going to go to pens. It's going to be 2-2 if no one else scores. But yeah, I think yeah, definitely 100%. If we'd have looked at it the other way around, if we'd played the way they played and they'd played the way we played, we'd be gutted with our team for not going for the jugular, not finishing them off. And instead, we sort of got out of jail to some extent. We whatever Klopp said at half time, I'm sure all he had to just say to them was, you know what to do, and they did it within seconds of the restart. I think, yeah, at times we lost our way, definitely again, but they're a good team, and I don't know. I genuinely think they've got more to be disappointed from coming out of the game in itself than we have. The only sort of bonus they have is that they've still got that top spot in the table, and it's still in their hands to win it. We can't do anything about it if they win every game, kind of thing. But it's, as you say, De Bruyne doesn't sound like he thinks they're going to win every game, that they need to do something about it. And there just seems to be. I mean, the interesting thing is Grealish, who I came up with a new term for him today, because he reminds me of a stereotypical mank, the annoying, arrogant, cocky mank that you get. But he's a brummie, so I've decided he's a brank, which is like a cross between the two, and that's an awful thing to think of. But, he doesn't even get to play until the last sort of, not even 10 minutes he gets. And the one time he looked like he might do something, and the crowd were all getting excited, Matip just puts him in his place, just wins the ball off him, and just ends it. And that's the only thing I can really remember him actually doing in that whole bit of time he came on. So, yeah, it ended with them fluffing the lines, if you like, at the end, and they could have beaten us with that. But I think we did enough. We did enough to get the point. It's disappointing because I genuinely think if we look back and think, if we'd have played in the first half more like we did in the second, we may well have won that, and that's where my disappointment comes. But it's happened now, and we can still turn the season around. We've still got 2 other cups to go for. They could still mess up. They are still under pressure. They can still feel us breathing down their necks. They can still hear our heavy hooves behind them. There's every chance they're going to fall because they're worried about what we're doing. And we've just got to take every game as it comes and show them, we are not a team to be messed with.
Appreciate the Aintree allusions there from a proper Skesser towards the end of the show. I'll be back to you for a sign off, Jim, in a second, and let's me and you do exactly that now, Dave. I mean, overall thoughts, sum ups, anything you want to get off your chest, and do as well, please, before you go, finish up by telling folks where they can hear you over the week.
I'm just looking at a clip of the Mahrez chance laid on, and it definitely takes a clip off one of our 2 centre backs. I can't figure out if it's Virgil or if it's Joel. I know it went for a goal kick and it wasn't recognised by the referee, but it definitely there's a little movement in the ball as it goes kind of through their legs. It definitely clips one of them. It's not important, but it's potentially a title-saving interjection from one of them. Just the one thing I think you glossed over was the Sterling one that was offside, because when it happened, I thought, he's miles offside. He's absolutely miles offside. And then I saw the still of it before they put the lines down. And when you see something and you just can't take your eyes off it, because I couldn't figure out if he was offside or onside. But thankfully he was leaning just far enough that it didn't make any real difference, and he was offside. Look, we played about as badly as we could possibly play today, and we got away with one. You look through that team, I think Ali was good, Trent, Joel and Virgil were good. I thought Robbo was really poor. I thought Fabinho had one of his worst games. Mane had a good second half after a bad first half. Jota scored a goal but kind of fluffed his lines in two of the big moments, and the ball just didn't stick to him at all. And Salah had another iffy game. We've talked about the captain. There's no point in going over it. I think the team that finished the game is the team that should have started the game, but I don't know if Bobby was fit enough to start. But he would have given us more presence up front. He would have given us a bit more in terms of ball retention, and we might have been able to play out a bit more. One of the problems we had all game was that every time we pinged the ball into the front three, it was just bouncing right back off them. And we were never able to really establish ourselves. There was one point in the game where Virgil and Matip both moved into their half, and we started to look like they'd gone 2-1 up at that point, and we started to look like the Liverpool of norm, which is, defending the halfway line, pressing them back, starting to suffocate them. But we just couldn't get anything to stick in the front three. But as I say, there's a difference between great players having poor games and the dog shit we've seen all season from others. So it is what it is. We're going to need to be an awful lot better next weekend in the Cup semi-final, or that will bring to an end any dreams that we may have of a quadruple. As for me, two-footed pod every day and the Daily Red. I'm actually getting more and more annoyed now the more I think about that performance. So I'm just going to say goodbye. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I can hear it in you, man, and I think it's absolutely valid. Absolutely valid. There's a lot of us, I think, might be building towards that particular conclusion. And Jim, I mean, not to sort of spin anything or try to influence you at all in any way. You wouldn't let me anyway if I tried. But that is, you can hear Dave. We probably should have been so much more ourselves in this one. It is a bit disappointing. Do you think it's that the overall impact of what happened today is a negative one on the potential of, I know it's stupid, but indulge me, the 4 trophy Reds?
I think everything. If there's one thing I can say has been consistent with Klopp since he came here, is when things don't go well, he looks at why they don't go well, and he and we, and as a team, as a club, as a squad, we learn from it. And I'm sure that he'll look at that today, and there's things that we can rip it apart, and we can rip it apart all day. There'll be things we've not even thought of that him and his coaching staff will have thought of, things that he needs to put right. I think it's just frustrating. It's something I've seen from Liverpool down the years when we've been having decent or good spells or okay spells, come to a big game. I mean, FA Cups, I think we played Villa in one a few years back and we just didn't turn up. It was as if like we were at Wembley, big occasion, nerves got to us.
Brendan Rodgers semi-final.
Yeah, it's just, we did that, I think, in the Europa League against, we were playing in Switzerland, in Basel, I think, and it just felt the same. We're all excited. It's this big, massive night, and oh, okay, it's just like a damp squib, and that's the most frustrating thing about today, that we could have been better, we should have been better, and if we were better, we would have won, and that's the biggest frustration, because the Liverpool side we've seen this season more often than not, playing the way it has done this season more often than not, would have won that. And I think that's my biggest disappointment. But, the sort of flip side to that is that Klopp generally speaking, does kind of learn from that and gets the team to learn from that. I mean, he even kind of did it in a way, I suppose, at half time, because we did play better after the break, although, again, not to our usual standards. I think there's a lesson to be learned. I mean, we came out of it 2-2. We're still in the league title race, even though it's not in our hands anymore. It's still a possibility. It could have been worse, and I genuinely think it could have been worse from that first half. And I think that's the difference. And I think, we can't get too upset by it, because we know we're better than that. We play again in the Champions League. We play in the FA Cup. Then we're playing a difficult, two games in a row against our biggest rivals, if you like, long-term rivals, who are no longer our biggest rivals on the pitch. It's, a toughest game of the season. The biggest disappointment is that we didn't play our best, and that to me is the biggest disappointment of all. And Klopp may well think that it's time for some players to be kind of taken to one side and told that they're going to be having a rest for a while because it just wasn't good enough. Maybe just being told it wasn't good enough will make a difference. But I hope he recognises the shortcomings, and if anything, maybe another silver lining to it is maybe it gets him to persuade someone to put their hands in the pockets in the summer, because all the players we've talked about today, I'll not go overboard on them again, who are sort of aging, if you like. They're going to be a year older this time next year, so we need to look at what we're doing in the summer to kind of bring replacements in if needed. It's not the end of the world. It's disappointing. We're still in for other cups. We could still win it. They could still mess up. I still feel like we'll be buying a pint for another team's fans, because I still think someone will do us a favour. But maybe that's just being sentimental. There's no evidence for that. It's just me maybe being sentimental. In terms of other shows, myself and Jay, we recorded a Scout at Tommy's last week. We mentioned the City game a little bit, but we're talking mostly about all the stuff that goes on at this time of year, this sort of spring months when things start getting exciting when you're a Liverpool fan. And it used to be like that all the time in the 80s, and it hasn't been like that for a while, but this spring it's feeling like that. There's still a lot to be excited for. So have a listen to how it is in the city when things are this exciting, at least in certain parts of the city anyway.
The story, or the little line used to be gathering cups in May.
Yeah.
And I think we may well be in line to do that again. And I find myself ridiculously optimistic that is a possibility for us. And myself and Jim and Dave will be back with you very, very soon for another Raw. The next one out is, unless I'm mistaken, Benfica. And that is Carl and Dave and myself. And then we have the FA Cup game against City, and that's Dave and Guy Drinkle, who's got us here so far, and myself. And then it is Dave and Harry and myself for Man United. Dave, myself and Carl for Everton, and we will see out April with the lineup from today with Jim and Dave and myself. So I look forward to all of those games, and I hope that each and every one of them brings us joy and brings us closer to the ridiculously possible still reality of the 4 trophy Reds. I will not let it go. I am a greedy man. I want to thank Jim Boardman. I want to thank Dave Hendrick. We have no producer today, so hopefully the quality is okay for you. I'm Trev Downey. They were the lads, and we'll speak to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.